Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Future TV. I'm Linda Taneem and these are today's top stories. Hundreds of men and women supporting Salafist cleric Sheikh Ahmed Al-Asir marched from Bilal bin Rabah Mosque in Abra after Friday prayers. The Egyptian army declares a state of emergency in South Sinai and Suez following a series of attacks by Islamist gunmen. And Syria's main opposition bloc urges the international community to take action to protect civilians in the embattled city of Homs. The worshippers in Sidon have rejected the speech delivered by the new Imam of Bilal bin Rabah Mosque, Sheikh Muhammad Abu Zaid, and left the mosque heading to the city's Al-Karama roundabout. So reports said the Imam had failed to mention Sheikh Ahmed Al-Asir in his speech, thus triggering a wave of anger among the attenders of the sermon. Worshippers took to the streets to protest, where they attacked a number of reporters and prevented them from covering the events, leading the Lebanese army to urge TV channels crews to leave the city immediately. The Friday prayers were held for the first time since the Abra clashes at the Bilal bin Rabah Mosque in Sidon. The prayers were held amid intensive security measures in the vicinity of the mosque. MP Bahi Al-Hariri has visited Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas at Phoenicia Hotel in Beirut to tackle the Lebanese-Palestinian situation. The MP said he praised the unity of the Palestinian people and their refraining from meddling into Lebanese affairs. For his part, Abbas hailed Hariri's support for the Palestinian cause. Earlier today, Abbas met with Lebanese Forces leader Samir Jaja. Both tackled regional affairs and the latest developments in the region. On another note, Abbas last night granted Lebanese singer Ragheb Alemi the Palestinian citizenship and handed him a diplomatic passport. Alemi said he felt honored by this gesture and stresses the Palestinian people's rights to return to their country. Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri has called for a meeting for the parliamentary committees on July the 22nd. The national news agency said the committee's joint meeting is scheduled to discuss several issues, including a draft law to protect women from domestic violence and another draft law to establish an ecological public prosecution. On Monday, Berri postponed a legislative session of Parliament that had been set to discuss some 45 draft laws after parties from both sides of the political divide boycotted the session. Berri adjourned the plenary sessions until July 15th, 16th and 17th, but kept the same items on the agenda. Energy Minister Gibran Bassil has issued a warning that the army and the resistance have the ability to protect Lebanon's oil reserves from Israel after he accused it of digging a well of 4 kilometers from Lebanese offshore reserves. During a press conference he held at the ministry, Bassil warned that Israel has now the ability to reach Lebanon's oil reserves in the sea. He urged President Michel Sleiman and Prime Minister Najib Mikati to hold a cabinet session to approve 2 decrees needed to move the oil exploration process forward, saying Lebanon's reputation is at stake. If adopted by the government, the decrees require the approval of the parliament. Lebanon and Israel are bickering over a zone that consists of about 854 square kilometers and suspected energy reserves. There could generate billions of dollars. First military investigation judge Riyad Abu Ghida has received the case of the detained suspects in Abra clashes. A day after State Commissioner to the Military Court Judge Sa'ir charged 27 people, 10 of them in absentia. The national news agency says Abu Ghida will interrogate the suspects on Monday over the deadly clashes with the Lebanese army in the town of Abra, near the city of Sidon. Salafist cleric Sheikh Ahmed Al-Asir and the singer turned Salafist Fadel Shakir were among the 27 people charged by Sa'ir. If convicted, the suspects could face the death penalty. The Syrian National Coalition appeals to the international community to put political pressure on President Bashar al-Assad to end the conflict in Syria. The SNC, which is holding a meeting in Istanbul, Turkey, said they were particularly concerned about the situation in Homs, where rebels are under siege and there are allegations of chemical weapons use.
There is a big problem now in Homs. The regime bombed Homs since few days, and we really are scared about the people there. The civilians are really received a lot of rockets every day. News not sure. We're not sure about that. About chemical weapons are used there. So really we are conscious about such matter. Our problem really we receive little. We don't receive what is enough. At least to, we have 100 friends, 100 states supporting the revolution, and the regime has just 2 or 3 states, but they support him much better than what our friends support us. We need really help from the international community, especially from the Security Council. What is going in Syria right now, especially in Homs, more not just arming. We need political pressure on the regime and his alliance to stop such really dare to war.
The United Nations food agencies have appealed for more funds to help an estimated 4 million Syrians unable to produce or buy enough to eat, as a new report detailed a farming sector severely hit by the conflict. The Food and Agriculture Organization said it had only received 10% of the $41.7 million it needed to assist 768,000 farmers, while the World Food Programme said its operation were only 48% resourced. Following a visit to Syria between May and June, the UN agencies said that domestic production over the next 12 months is likely to be severely compromised. They estimated Syria will need to import 1.5 million tons of wheat for the 2013-2014 season. Food production has been hampered by massive population displacement, damage to infrastructure, economic sanctions, currency depreciation, and high fuel prices. Coming up next, British citizens are concerned that the abuse of power by British and U.S. intelligence agencies will pose great threats to public privacy. We'll tell you more about it after the break. Welcome back. Egypt's army has announced a state of emergency in the provinces of South Sinai and Suez after Islamist gunmen attacked an airport in the Sinai town of Al Arish, close to the border with the Gaza Strip and Israel. Egyptian security forces also closed the Rafah crossing between Gaza and Egypt after Islamist gunmen staged multiple attacks on security forces in Egypt's troubled Sinai Peninsula. Security sources said a soldier was killed and 2 were wounded when a police station in Egypt's Rafah area on the border with the Gaza Strip came under rocket fire. The border closure has angered Gaza residents as the Rafah crossing serves as the only gateway for Palestinians to travel out of the besieged Strip. Thousands of supporters of Mohamed Morsi have gathered in the Nasser city in the Egyptian capital to protest against his ouster as the country's president in a military coup. The crowds were expected to swell further after Friday afternoon prayers in response to the call by a coalition of Islamist groups led by the Muslim Brotherhood for demonstrations against the coup. The coalition on Thursday urged people to take part in a Friday of rejection protest following weekly prayers. The call is being seen as a test of whether Morsi still has a support base in the country and how the army will deal with it. While the military coup came in the wake of mass protests seeking Morsi's dismissal, the ex-president's supporters are angry and have denounced the army's intervention. They have vowed to continue with their sit-in protest and march towards the defense ministry. UN Human Rights Chief Navi Pillay has expressed alarm about reported massive arrests of key members of Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood after the military ousted President Mohamed Morsi and urged all sides to respect fundamental freedoms. Pillay's spokesman, Rupert Colville, told reporters in Geneva that the basis of the detention of individuals, including Morsi and other Muslim Brotherhood, remained unclear. Colville stressed the importance for the authorities to address that issue. Pillay said there should be no more violence, no arbitrary detention, no legal acts of retribution. She added serious steps should also be taken to halt and investigate the appalling sexual violence targeting women protesters. Pillay said that international human rights standards, including freedom of speech and assembly, must be upheld. Attacks have killed 5 people in town squares in Iraq, including four who died when a suicide bomber set off his vehicle rigged with explosive just before midday prayers. The latest violence, which left dozens wounded, comes as Iraq struggles with a surge in violence coinciding with a long-running government deadlock and months of protests among the Sunni Arab minority. The deadliest of the attacks struck Samara, a town north of Baghdad, when a suicide bomber detonated a car bomb near Al-Haq Square a focal point for anti-government protesters for months. Police said the suicide bomber wore an army uniform. Elsewhere in the country, a bomb set off in Al Amil Square in the town of Quds, south of Baghdad, killing one person and wounding 17 others. The Vatican says the late Pope John Paul II will be made a saint, announcing that Pope Francis had approved a second miracle attributed to the highly popular Polish pontiff, who led the Roman Catholic Church from 1978 to 2005. John Paul II had already been credited with asking God to cure French nun Marie-Simon Pierre Normand of Parkinson's disease. The second miracle attributed to John Paul's intercession is the inexplicable curing of a woman from Costa Rica who prayed to him for help with her medical condition on the day of his beatification. No dates for the canonization ceremonies were immediately given, but the Vatican said they were expected by the end of the year. And now for news around the world in brief. Dutch artist Iro Caravan, along with a dozen Tibetan activists, presented the Chinese embassy in The Hague with a birthday cake and a portrait of the Dalai Lama made from 16 individually unrecognizable pieces to mark the exiled spiritual leader's birthday, which is on July the 6th. The activists cut the cake outside the embassy after a security guard closed the doors, denying access to the compound. Employees of the municipality of Athens, including municipal police, gathered outside government ministries in protest as the Troika ministers were discussing reducing the public sector workforce. The protest comes after Greek media reports said municipal police employees may be laid off or transferred to the regular police force, sparking fears of job cuts for those who were not transferred. At least 10 people were injured when a set of fireworks accidentally exploded and shot into a crowd of onlookers during an Independence Day celebration in Simi Valley, California. U.S. broadcaster NBC said the park was evacuated shortly after the fireworks went off, and the injured were treated at a triage area. Initial investigations suggest the explosions were accidental and not caused by foul plan. British citizens are concerned that the abuse of power by British and U.S. intelligence agencies will pose great threats to public privacy. Nearly a month has passed since former intelligence contractor Edward Snowden exposed the United States surveillance programs to the public. However, the spying scandal is deteriorating, as some British local media reported that the British intelligence agencies cooperated with its U.S. counterparts and monitored over massive amounts of information from the public. So far, the British government has not given any official explanation, and British citizens feel that such acts are threatening public interests. When asked about the opinions on the Snowden case, one London resident said that the case was similar to U.S. Army whistleblower Bradley Manning, adding that Snowden had the right to reveal what he wanted. He said if the government was spying on Americans and Britons, it violated human rights. In addition, many people believe that this kind of activity poses a great threat to citizens. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now let me remind you of our headlines. Hundreds of men and women supporting Southist cleric Sheikh Ahmed Al-Asir marched from Bilal bin Rabah Mosque in Abra after Friday prayers. The Egyptian army declares a state of emergency in South Sinai and Suez following a series of attacks by Islamist gunmen. And finally, Syria's main opposition bloc urges the international community to take action to protect civilians in the embattled city of Homs. Those were today's headlines from Future Television, live from Beirut. Catch me again tomorrow, same time, for more of the world's top stories. Have a great evening.
يوم الأحد هو 14 شباط مرة أخرى.